Welcome to one of my favorite driving machines of all time, the Lotus Elise. I've driven this example before. This is a 2006, and the owner Christian has let me drive this like 4 or 5 times now, but every time he keeps making more improvements to make this car fit his needs. As you can see, we now have an updated steering wheel with carbon, brand new perforated leather, a new wooden and metal shift knob. This thing is so dialed in. We also have JRZ suspension now. Full list of mods will be in the video description, but in this video, I will be comparing this naturally aspirated Lotus Elise against a very similarly modified supercharged Lotus Elise. I believe they only sold the supercharged Elise here in the States for the 2008 and up model year, but that one we're about to drive next is a 2007. So the owner Mike retrofitted a factory Lotus supercharger, which only adds about 30 horsepower. This one has the naturally aspirated 1.8 liter 2ZZ engine sourced from Toyota, 190 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. The car weighs just under 2,000 pounds. Official curb weight is 1,984 pounds. That's in part because of its diminutive dimensions, but also because this has a bonded aluminum monocoque chassis. We've got double wishbone front and rear suspension, and because this aluminum monocoque has very wide door sills and the passenger and driver seats are kind of pushed quite close together, that gives enough space under the wheel wells to fit those double wishbones, of course, for optimal handling and cornering speed. In terms of some of the key mods here, we've got a Sonicfury DE Muffler. The engine is stock, but we have an Inokinetic Stage 1 tune. It lowers the VVTi cam change down to about 5,500 RPM, so figure around 200 to 205 horsepower at the crank and maybe close to 150 pound-feet. We've got Toybox Hethel wheels from Outerplus Garage in Japan. These are fully forged, 16x7 in the front, 17x8 in the rear, and we're running 205 front, 225 rear, Yokohama 8009 tires. Stock calipers with endless brake pads. We've got some input mods as well. Inokinetic CG and GS shift cables. We've got an Exedy Stage 1 clutch and a Monkeywrench Racing lightweight flywheel. Quaife helical LSD, JRZ RS one-way adjustable suspension, etc., etc. This thing has been tuned to be a great street, canyon, and track car. I actually reviewed this car on the track. I think that was before it had the JRZ RS1s, however. But let's start with this car, one of my favorite pure driving machines of all time, and then see if adding 30 horsepower with a supercharger actually makes this car even better. Oh my God, so much steering feel. Unassisted steering rack, just brimming with feedback. Oh, I love this lightweight flywheel. The engine is so responsive and peppy. The shifter still does take some getting used to. The 3-to-2 shift is a little bit tricky. Wow, feels so lightweight here in the corners. The brakes are perfect, so much pedal feel. Oh my God, the steering. Just an insane level of feedback. I would say there is a little bit of noise baked in there because unassisted, such a lightweight car, sticky tires. Not all the information you get through the wheel is necessarily useful, but it is so enjoyable just to feel everything. Now we've been short shifting this at around 7,500 RPM, but let's get it onto this straight over here and take it all the way out to its red line. There it is. I love the 2ZZ engine. Oh my goodness, the controls, the driver inputs, so good. jacking the brake pedal. Now, the shifter is still not my favorite, even with these upgraded cables and the reinforcer. It is still a cable shifter with a vague, kind of sloppy throw. Balance, these sticky Yokohama tires. Yes! What a car! And wow, these JRZ RS one-way coilovers doing a great job at soaking up these bumps. The way this is set up right now with the damping feels like more of a street and canyon setup, less of a track setup, which is perfect for these conditions. That pure induction note at over 8,000 RPM, it's something else. The lightweight flywheel is a little tricky, because you have to clutch in and clutch back out for each shift very quickly. I love the fact that I can just feel every wheel moving independently in the corners, over the bumps. Just the level of communication this car gives you. It's unlike basically anything else, especially in this price range, sub $50,000. This is probably the most enjoyable driver's car of them all. And the way Christian has modified it, oh my goodness, this is close to perfection as a canyon car. There's plenty of suspension travel, so it soaks up the bumps and lets you stay on the throttle even on the rougher sections of road. It's truly magnificent. And with the exhaust mods, you get to hear that engine that much better. The Quaife LSD putting the power down, coming out of corners. This is just a joy-inducing, grin-inducing driving machine. Quick in a straight line, but you don't really care because the sensation of speed is there. You sit so low, the car's so small, it's so raw, there's so much feedback coming through all of the controls. A little over 200 horsepower feels just right in this sub 2,000 pound car. But what happens when you add a supercharger? You add 20 to 30 horsepower. Does the throttle response become an issue? Because right now, with the naturally aspirated engine, the light flywheel, this is just about perfect. My only wish is that the shifter felt a bit better. Always been a complaint of mine with Lotuses, but at least with these particular mods from Inokinetic, it does feel a lot better than stock. But enough of this, let's jump into the supercharged Elise and see which one I like better. All right, we're now in Mike's 2007 Lotus Elise with a supercharger. As I mentioned earlier, he installed a factory supercharger to add about 25 to 30 horsepower. We're only talking about 5 PSI of boost. The 11.5 to 1 compression ratio has been unchanged from the naturally aspirated model, but it's worth pointing out that peak torque with the supercharger now happens at 5,000 RPM instead of 6,800. Curb weight for an Elise SC would be around 2,043 pounds, some 60 pounds heavier. This car is finished in Storm Titanium. It was was originally equipped as a touring package car. They made very few of these in 2007 for the US market. Mod list is in the video description, but as I mentioned, Lotus supercharger with a Lotus factory ECU. This was installed by TrackSpec. TrackSpec works on both of these cars, by the way, as well as some of my cars. We've got LSS or Lotus Sport Suspension Forged wheels, Yokohama Advan A052 tires, so an even stickier Yokohama than what's on Christian's car, which is the 8009. We also have the JRZ RS1 single adjustable coilovers here, a quick ratio steering rack, interestingly, which is only 2.5 turns lock to lock, and we've got some exterior aero and other aesthetic bits. Getting in and out of an Elise or Exede has never been my favorite thing to do. In fact, I tweaked my back. It might have been getting out of Christian's car one of the last times I drove it. I've driven so many of these over the last 10 years, and yet I'm still not comfortable getting in and out. This just has a factory steering wheel, which I will say I really admire the fact that Lotus puts these thumb, not grips, but like indents here, so you can have good leverage on the steering wheel without having to curl your thumb all the way around. This does have the immobilizer, so we got to press this button once, key in, engine start. This transmission is completely stock. I don't think it even has any shifter mods, so we'll see how that affects the shifter feel. Okay, I definitely feel the difference. Mid-range torque is up, top end power is also up. It's not a huge difference, but definitely noticeable the first time you put your foot down. Wow, interestingly, this car's throttle response is much more dull. Now, I'm not sure if that's because of the supercharger or because this has the OEM flywheel. Christian's car has a lightweight flywheel. Incredible steering feel, on par with Christian's car. But I actually feel like this OEM steering wheel does less filtering out of the steering feedback. There's actually more feedback in this one slightly. Yeah, I gotta flip the throttle so hard for downshifts here. The shifter is definitely better in Christian's car. This one has an even more vague and sort of floppy feel to it. There's more lateral slot by far. I mean, look at that. That's in third gear. I do think that Inokinetic shifter upgrades are well worth it. Doesn't completely resolve the shifter feel deficiencies, but definitely better than stock. Wow. I don't know if it's just this exhaust setup, but this has an even more aggressive sound high in the rev range. The one other thing I'm noticing, even though both of these cars have JRZ RS one-way coilovers, this one feels quite a bit harsher. I'm not sure if that's because of the setup, the damping, but yeah, this one, I don't feel as confident driving over bumps, and in fact I feel my brain being rattled around a little bit more here. I don't feel any difference in weight, even though this is supposedly almost 60 pounds heavier. It feels the same. So nimble, so lightweight. Wow, just incredible. I mean, we're really splitting hairs here, guys. Both of these cars, whether you go naturally aspirated or supercharged, are some of the absolute best driving cars for the money. Does the supercharger give you a noticeable boost in straight line performance? Yes, of course it does. When you're talking 2,000 pound curb weight, even an extra 20 to 30 horsepower, you will feel that. But do I think this enhances the driving experience? That's where I'm not so sure. Again, I wish both of these cars could have the same OEM flywheel, or maybe at least have the same aftermarket flywheel. But one thing I definitely notice is that at lower RPMs, when I'm blipping the throttle for downshifts, this feels very dull. You actually have to blip the throttle surprisingly hard. At higher RPM, less of an issue, but you still have to blip it significantly harder than you do in Christian's NA model. Could be completely due to the flywheel difference, but it might also have to do with the fact that a supercharged engine will have slightly dulled throttle response. See right there, I blipped the throttle pretty hard, but I was still 200 or 300 RPM shy. Let's try that again. Okay, I nailed it that time, but I do think there's more of a learning curve here. Christian's car just felt more natural. Yeah, see, this suspension is just more lively. There's so much motion. Of this car setup might be slightly better in terms of the cornering, but what you give up in compliance over bumps, I don't think is worth it. At least for this particular road, this bumpy, tight, technical road, Christian's car just feels a bit more natural because it just soaks up the bumps better. And when you pair that with the slightly better shifter and the far superior throttle response, it just makes for a more natural driving experience that I can get into a groove with a bit easier. But that extra 20 to 30 horsepower is addicting. If only we can get Christian's chassis setup with this engine, but still maintain the throttle response of Christian's car, that might just be the perfect Lotus Elise. But either way, you can't go wrong with a Lotus Elise. Just one of the absolute best driver's cars out there at any price. If you're talking sub $50,000, it's a no-brainer. If you raise your budget to say $100,000, I can't think of a single car that is more raw and visceral. You could argue something like an Ariel Atom or a Caterham is more visceral, but I wouldn't say in a more enjoyable way. In those cars, I feel like I'm so exposed to the elements that it's almost just terrifying to drive because I feel like I could die at a moment's notice. Not that the Elise is a particularly safe car to drive if you're to get hit by something, I mean anything on the road nowadays. Hell, a Tesla weighs 2.5 times as much as this. But at least I do feel a bit more secure in a car like this. So big shout out to the owners, Christian and Mike. Let me know what you think about the differences between these two builds. Is it possible to make a supercharged Elise or Exige have the same throttle response as a naturally aspirated Elise or Exige with a lightweight flywheel? Because if you could just make that happen, take the best of both worlds from these two cars, you have, in my opinion, the best driving experience of pretty much anything you can pay reasonable money for. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.